So,
Recording in progress.
hey, good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Account Based Friday. We've got a great one today with Daryl Alphonso, who's joining us from California. Daryl, who is the head of marketing operations for Amazon Web Services. You're in for a great conversation today. Really excited to have Daryl join us. We're going to ask him to give a proper background introduction in a moment, but maybe we can dive into this week's poll, which is related to Daryl's area. Which areas are you feeling the most budget pressure right now in your organization? And while we didn't have a ton of votes on this, and not too big of a surprise from my perspective, was the net new sales tech MarTech. Net new is always the easiest decision to make because it's not necessarily impacting anybody in terms of immediate impact. It probably could weigh on them on the longer term, but certainly an easy decision. And I guess the reason I posted this was there was a question that came up of somebody had asked a question around how should we be framing up the cost of not having the proper people to operate the tools, almost being too tool centric, and not having the right people to run the MarTech stack. But I don't know, Megan, what was your reaction to this week's poll?
Yeah, also not surprised, but I think it sort of tells an interesting story too. I think even before we had budget pressure coming for a lot of companies based on sort of economic factors, I think you were seeing increasing pressure from marketing leaders, CFOs, and others kind of in the go-to-market team saying, do we really need that new tool? And I remember being in plenty of sales cycles where the question I got was, what do I replace if I buy from you? And I think that's a really important question, right? Is this, and if the answer is, well, nothing, okay, then what am I going to get? And how is this going to help make the other stuff I already have more productive? So I think it's actually a healthy skepticism to say, I'm getting some pressure because you really want to be able to say, I am adding something that will make a meaningful impact that I will be able to prove the value of, and I won't be overtaxing my team by doing so. Because then back to the existing one, I think the pressure on existing is because if you are not able to say, yes, we are making full use of this tool and we've gotten the most out of it, and I can prove the way that it contributes to our impact on revenue, maybe not with a direct line, but at least being clear on the role that it plays in supporting your customer experience, I think you're going to have a hard time justifying keeping things, much less adding more. Because if you're not using what you have, then usually it's not like you're not going to get the vote of confidence to add. So this tells a story to me that's probably made worse by some of the economic conditions and uncertainty that we have now. But I think it just reflects to a reality where if there's so much you could buy smart. That's my take.
Got it.
Daryl, we're super excited to have you here, and I can't think of anybody better to weigh in on this particular question. What are you hearing and seeing about how people are making investments and what they're getting challenged by in the budget process?
Yeah, I agree with this poll too. So there's two things I think about when I look at a poll like this. One of the big problems is that marketers tend to build their marketing technology stacks like a set of golf clubs. They have, you want your driver, your 3-wood, your 7-iron, and your putter in the event that you would need it at some time in the future. Like, we will probably need this. So they're sort of picking their tools based on what they think they need or what the market tells them that they need. The other thing is there's a very big sort of keeping up with the Joneses syndrome going on among marketers because, they talk to their peers and they say they're using X tool. They talk to they go to a conference and then they see that, oh, this new tool is out there. So it makes them sort of feel like they're missing out when they don't have the latest and the greatest tools. So that, I think, drives a lot of the decision making, unfortunately. So that's where I think the executives and the leadership team are coming down and starting to challenge some of these buying decisions of, hey, do we really need that tool? Like you said, Megan. And you know, and I think we'll get more into this later on, but you know, the solution for this is you always want to let strategy drive your technology decisions and not the other way around. It shouldn't be, oh, here's the tech, what are we now going to do with it? How are we going to use it the most? That is one of the that's like my biggest pet peeve. How can we randomly get the most out of the tools that we're using when and the answer to those questions come from the vendors. The question you should be asking is, how can we use this tech to best serve our customers? What are our customer pain points? What are our sales team's pain points? What are our marketing team's pain points? How can we bring in tools to streamline all of those and deliver more value? That's the real question. So
that's such a great point, Daryl. And maybe just taking a step back, you've got an incredible background and you're running marketing operations for a very large organization and a recent author. Maybe you could just give us a quick background of your role and responsibilities now so we can kind of get some depth of, you know, where your point of view is quite unique given that background.
Sure. So I've been running MarTech and marketing teams for the last 15 years now across startups, mid-sized companies, and now at this large enterprise, Amazon. So AWS is the cloud computing division of Amazon. And, you know, my team really owns the marketing technology stack. The way that I like to see it, and the way I like to put it is my team empowers thousands of marketers across the world to create exceptional digital experiences for our customers. And yeah, we mostly do that through technology. And it's one of this, it's a challenge, I think, definitely working here. We have incredible goals and incredible scale. You know, the marketing organization is well over 1,000 people. So you know, the tools that we use, the processes that we have major impact and implications. And yeah, one other thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but I'm really passionate about this. I just wrote a book about it. I have it right here. It's called the MarTech Handbook, available where all books are sold. You can get on Amazon, of course. And I really wrote this as a field guide for marketers and business owners to, you know, have alongside their desk as they're tackling some of these marketing technology questions. And you know, I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier, John, but it really applies to technology buying in general. You know, if you're buying tools for the sales team, if you're buying tools for your customer success team, if you're buying account-based marketing tools, these concepts, very much like what I was talking about earlier, these concepts can be applied to different parts of business technology. So super excited about it, and hopefully it can help a lot of business owners and marketers out there.
Yeah, I'm super excited to check it out. Thank you, Daryl, and congratulations. That's a milestone to publish a book. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks, Megan.
Super exciting. Question for you, as you think about, you know, some of the errors that people get into, what are sort of your top 2 things that go wrong when people are making tech decisions? What things do you see sort of taking what should have a ton of promise and potential and turning it into something that doesn't work out the way they hoped?
Yeah, that's a really good one. So there are a lot, but I'll call out my favorite 2 probably. The first one is you're buying a tool that doesn't play well with the other tools in your stack. So and it's not part of your holistic MarTech strategy. And this is really common, you know, again, because of things like shiny object syndrome, right? They see a flashy new tool and they want to buy it, or they see that their peer is using a tool and they want to buy it, but they didn't take the time to evaluate and consider, is this the right tool for our specific business and for our specific industry and customer? Will our sales team use this tool? Do they like it? So this leads to, when you do things like this leads to something called shelfware, which you probably may have heard of. And that essentially means that the tool that you just bought sits on the, metaphoric shelf, and doesn't get usage, kind of like a tool that you buy in your garage and you use it one time and you never use it again. So interconnectedness and fit into the MarTech stack is the first big one. The next big one, unfortunately, is talent. And a lot of marketers, a lot of technology buying decision makers forget that any piece of technology takes tools, talent, and time to really get the full potential and the full ROI out of it, especially when you get to these enterprise systems. Now, of course, there are going to be, some nice tools out there where you plug it in and play, but those are the exceptions. Those point solutions where you just, add it to your calendar and you're good to go. Okay, there are those. But generally, when you're making these considered purchases of technologies, and the ticket prices for these might be 50,000, 100,000, etc. This takes talent, time, and effort to really bring to life. And this also, again, leads to shelfware when you don't have the talent. It's very demoralizing, to be honest. If your team, if you set a tool in front of your team and they don't know how to use it, or they have to take a 6-month training course, 3-month training course in order to use it, it becomes very demoralizing. And the cost of this starts to go up, whether it is, the annual cost or the monthly cost of the product sitting there, or you have to pay expensive consultants to come in, and fix what you weren't able to get right in the first place. And I know that kind of sounds harsh, but that is the dangers of pulling the trigger on a tool before you know that it's right for you and before you know that it's right for your business. And having the right talent is part of that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Not all consultants are expensive. Just
Okay.
Speaking on behalf of consultants. No.
Very true.
One of the things on talent that I see is that we've hired a lot of what I call make the trains run on time marketers. So they're good at running the tools, integrating the tools, making the system work. And they're very logistical and they're very process oriented. So all of that's great, but they're the least creative people in the world by the nature of that profile. So what we've done is we've pushed out the agencies, we've pushed out the creative types, really out of corporations entirely. So how do you feel about, it's kind of like, yeah, the Ferrari can do 180 miles an hour, but nobody in the team can drive over 50 miles an hour, right? In terms of creativity, in terms of innovative ways of engaging prospects, because the tool is only as good as the person using it. And that ties in with the salespeople, right? If they're reaching out with these tools, but they're not reaching out in a way that's relevant to the prospect or engaging to the prospect, it doesn't really matter what tool they have.
Yep. Yeah. I definitely, that resonates with me. And I've been thinking about that a little bit. One is, this is really an industry question, I think, sometimes, because, for example, at AWS, it's a tech company. The marketers are very much as you described, high in digital proficiency, high in, tech savvy, and many of them, kind of live and breathe this stuff every day. In other industries, I found, especially in more traditional marketing circles, they tend to be a lot less. I see them as more concerned around the brand, more concerned around the creative and the messaging, the copywriting, all very important things. But it's almost a 180, and they almost do the opposite. They keep the creative in-house and they start to outsource the digital execution to agencies and consultants. So, and I always find that such an interesting question. It's almost like how different businesses are, so different. They're almost like people. You have introverts, you have extroverts, you have people that are later on in their career. You have people just getting started, and it's very different altogether. So I think the way that I address this is, you thinking about your marketing and tech stack from an outcome-based perspective, right? You're trying to look at what are the set of core skills, what are the set of core functions that I need to accomplish, and then looking at your business talent and resources, and then adding on, and in the book I call it value-added tools, adding on these tools that really make it custom and make it your own. So one quick example, if I could, is that if you're let's say you have your core capabilities already covered. You got your CRM, you got some sort of email platform, you have a reporting tool, maybe a workflow management tool, something like that, right? Now, if your customer, your target customer, responds to things like direct mail, they respond to things like physical gifts, messages, swag, whatever, then it's time to integrate a direct mail tool that connects directly with your marketing automation platform. If they don't, and maybe they're the type of audience that respond much more heavily to social media, they're on social channels, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, that's the time to bring in a social listening tool, a social publishing tool, something that integrates really well with your other channels. And there's every mix of in between, and that's how I think that we can approach these differences in businesses, is really being thoughtful about how we add on these additional tools beyond the core set of functionalities.
You're running a huge operation there, Daryl, and you're probably seeing things from a scale and scope perspective that a lot of other enterprises envy or would want to get to that stage. As you've gone through that scaling and scoping, what have been a lesson or two that you've learned along the way as part of that process?
Yeah, so really good question. And just to kind of get a sense, if there's listeners in that haven't worked at a mega enterprise, I almost define Amazon as a mega enterprise versus your typical enterprise, which will have 1,000 to 10,000 employees, et cetera. Amazon's at over 1 million. So it's a very different kind of scale. When you work with that many people, you're always facing the problems of scale. Everything is always bursting at the seams, and the nature of your work becomes different. So for those people that are sort of thinking about joining a mega enterprise, it's something that you really should consider. If that's the nature of the work that you like to do. I like to compare it between, let's say you have an ice cream shop on the corner. You're making custom ice cream for each customer one at a time, and then you're transitioning to an entire commercial warehouse operation, filling in pints of ice cream at 100 pints every hour, and the differences of the problems are night and day. At the small ice cream shop, you're like, oh, we're out of sugar. Oh, we're out of this. Let me just run to the store and get it, and we'll help the customer right away. At the commercial warehouse, we're missing an entire pallet. All of the deliveries are going to be pushed back a month. You know what I mean? Those are the types of problems. So in a mega enterprise, you are always dealing with problems of scale. So one of the things that I really like to do, and I like to do with my team, is do these future-oriented exercises. And for every solution that we build, we always ask, can this solution handle 10x the volume? Can this, marketing platform handle 10 times the number of emails a year from now? Can it handle 10 times the amount of users? Can it handle 10 times the amount of volume of data queries that we want? We're pulling 5 reports today. Can we pull 500 next year? And that sort of orients me and sort of grounds me, and it makes it, I like to think that our team does not make these snap-by decisions. We do not make these impulse decisions based on what others are doing. we really think about what the future looks like. And even if you're not an enterprise, it's a great exercise to go through when you're doing technology buying.
Daryl, I appreciate that. I think future-proofing your investments is one of the smartest things you can do at any, sort of point of evolution of a company, whether you're a startup moving to be a scale-up or a scale-up wanting to be an enterprise, or where you are, which I can't even begin to imagine. With that in mind, though, I'm curious to know, thinking about all the categories that are sort of existing and emerging within revenue tech, what are a couple of categories you're excited about in terms of their potential on, to impact marketers and the work that they do, or really revenue teams in general?
That's a really good one. And I think, I'll really go off the cuff with this one. I am a really big fan of making work easier. So there's a slew of planning tools, forecasting tools, budgeting tools, and I've always been a fan of workflow management tools. Many people, I think, don't really get how if you invest in operational excellence, which I talk about in the book, but around efficiency, around how your teams work together, around planning for the future, that can really level up your game. A lot of marketers, a lot of teams are buying the next flashy tool, and they want to create some sort of interesting experience for their customers, which there's a lot of value on. But when you invest in planning, when you invest in workflow management, what you do is you better effectively connect your activities to strategy. And I think that is one of the biggest problems on marketing teams today. The CMO sets the strategy, but everyone down the line starts to do activities that may or may not be connected. And what I think is really lacking. Strategy effectively married to execution. And if you can get those two things right, I think those are the traits of winning marketing teams, in my opinion. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just last quick question on my side as we're approaching the bottom of the hour here and wrapping up. You probably have a counterpart on the other side of sales operations, and I would imagine some of your MarTech or sales tech would interface with that. What's that conversation and dialogue like if you are having that interface in those conversations?
Yeah, so one of the great things about working with Amazon is we're very principle centered. So this deters a lot of the infighting. And makes it so, a lot of companies today have like a revenue operations organization, or they center around revenue. We don't do that. We have a traditional structure. So marketing and sales are separate, but our principles guide us, and we think about that in everything that we do, whether it's launching new products or even promoting and hiring teams. And customer obsession is like our one of our big and largest principle. So that means that, hey, we have two sets of customers. When we meet with sales operations, it's always what's in the best interest of our external customer, the people buying and paying the bills, and what's the best interest of our internal customer, the salespeople using the tools and the marketers using our marketing technology stack. So we just revisit that question over and over again. And the alignment comes very naturally. And I think we're fortunate to have that. It's especially helpful, especially since there's so many of us.
Got it. Good. Megan, any other last questions here as we wrap up?
Oh, I'm sure we could ask some good questions of you all day, Daryl, for sure. No, this is really, really super helpful. I know you've given me some good things to think about, and I'm going to be leaving this call to go buy your book. So thank you for joining us today, and for also giving us a glimpse into what it's like to run marketing operations within one of the biggest companies in the world. That's pretty exciting if you ask me. But John or Michael, any last questions for our guests?
No, it's all very helpful. Thank you so much, Daryl.
Yeah, and in-person conferences are back, so I'm hoping to maybe cross paths with each of you in the future, either this year or next year. drop me a line, and yeah, hopefully we'll cross paths again. But this has been
Excellent.
fun. So much fun.
Daryl, thanks for joining us early morning there in California, and congrats again on the fresh book. We're definitely looking forward to digging into that. And so for the next 2 weeks, just so people are aware, we've got a special guest in 2 weeks, Jen Allen. She is the evangelist for the Challenger sale and the customer side of things. She's phenomenal. I am super excited. We probably will recruit some sales counterparts to that conversation as well. So that should be a really good one. Next week, we're probably going to do an open mic conversation that's not recorded, but bring your account-based challenges to the desk or to the table. And, between us, we'll figure out a way to help solve your account-based challenge. That's the same time next week, next Friday. It'll be Zoom only. It won't be on LinkedIn Live. So with that, Daryl, thanks again for joining us. And have a great weekend.
Take care, everyone.
Recording
Thank
stopped.
you. Thanks so much.